The Alpha's surprise twin heirs. Chapter 4. Talia woke to a cool draft of dawn light peeking through the heavy curtains, illuminating the gentle rise and fall of Aldric's chest beneath her cheek. For a moment, she let herself remain perfectly still, absorbing the warmth of his body, the soft sound of his even breaths, and the comforting drum of his heartbeat. This space, this private chamber, was hers now. It felt both unreal and unspeakably precious that she was permitted to wake beside him each morning. His arms were loosely wrapped around her waist, and she felt his embrace tighten slightly as he stirred. She turned her head, meeting the golden flicker of his eyes. There was a soft curve to his lips, almost a smile, as though he had been aware of her for some time. "You were breathing so quietly," he murmured, voice husky with the remnants of sleep. "I didn't want to wake you." She shifted, resting her chin on his chest so she could look up at him. "I've never slept so well," she admitted, voice just above a whisper. "Even with all my worries, it's as if being next to you makes it easier to breathe." He lifted one hand to smooth away a stray lock of her hair. "There's nowhere else I'd rather have you. You know that." She let out a soft sigh, thinking of the Luna ceremony that had taken place only the night before. In this early morning hush, the pageantry of it felt like a dream. "I'm still trying to convince myself it really happened, that your entire pack just saw me sworn in as their Luna." His thumb brushed her temple in a gentle caress. "They did. And I promise you, Talia, the only way this feels strange to them is in the best possible sense. You proved yourself. You showed them who you are." She closed her eyes, recalling the moment she had faced all those curious gazes. The memory still quickened her pulse, but now it carried more excitement than dread. "I hope so," she whispered. "I felt like half of them were accepting. A few were still reserved, and maybe one or two were studying me like a puzzle they needed to solve." "I never expected unanimous adoration overnight," Aldric said, voice holding a note of amusement. "But the pack sees you. They see the woman who fought by my side, the mother to our twins. They see a strength that was missing here for a long time." His words warmed her more than any blanket. She inched up, pressing her lips to his in a gentle kiss. "You always know what to say to calm me." He returned the soft contact, deepening it for a blissful moment. "I only speak what's true." His fingers drifted slowly along her back, leaving tingles in their wake. "But I can see uncertainty in your eyes. Tell me." Her cheeks heated at the tender way he coaxed her fears. She curled her fingers in the fabric of his shirt. "I keep wondering if I can uphold this role. Being Luna is more than just wearing a title or greeting visitors. It's leading beside you, guiding this pack, being a voice they trust. I've never led anything in my life." He shifted, pulling her closer so her head rested on his shoulder. "You have a heart that wants to protect and care for those you love. You're already leading by example. When you show kindness to Beth or share quiet, reassuring words with a nervous pack member, that's leadership. It's not always about public speeches or grand gestures." She fell quiet for a long moment, comforted by the steady rhythm of his breathing. Finally, she let out a little laugh. "You know, I used to dream of a simpler life, a home with children, maybe a small yard for them to play in. I never thought I'd be living in a mansion with guards outside the door and the entire pack's eyes watching us." His hand paused mid-stroke along her spine. "I'm sorry if it feels overwhelming. I wish I could give you quiet days of ease." "It's not that I dislike it," she said quickly, gazing at him. "It's that I never allowed myself to believe I could have anything so grand, or that I deserved it. Now it's here, and it's bigger than I ever imagined. It's terrifying, but exhilarating." "That's because you were meant for more than a quiet life of obscurity," he replied, lifting her hand and brushing his lips over her knuckles. "But I know how it must feel to be in a whirlwind of ceremonies and responsibilities. I want you to remember that you're not alone in any of it." She kissed his cheek. "You have a way of banishing my insecurities before they can swallow me whole." He offered a reassuring smile, but in the next heartbeat, she glimpsed something else in his gaze. A flicker of longing. His grip on her waist tightened, and she felt the slow, subtle press of his body against hers. "Speaking of insecurities," he murmured, voice growing softer, "are you sure you have no second thoughts about sharing your life with an alpha who can be a bit intense?" A wry smile tugged at her lips. She pushed gently at his chest, then leaned forward to kiss the side of his jaw. "I would say your intensity is one of your most appealing qualities, Aldric. And I have no second thoughts, only 1,000 hopes." He inhaled sharply at her touch, his eyes fluttering shut for an instant. "Then let me show you just how deeply I cherish you, my Luna." Her heart thudded, warmth rushing through her. When he pressed his lips to hers again, this time it was with lingering tenderness that gradually gave way to a deeper, more sensual current. She let herself be carried by it, reveling in the private moment of connection they shared, away from prying eyes and the avalanche of responsibilities waiting for them outside these walls. A soft knock at the door eventually drew them apart. She exhaled, cheeks flushed, as Aldric cleared his throat. "Come in," Aldric called, his hand sliding away from Talia's waist with obvious reluctance. The door opened a crack to reveal Beth's gentle face. "Pardon me, I didn't mean to intrude, but Charlotte mentioned Talia wanted to see the twins before everyone starts bustling about the estate. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Talia offered a hurried, grateful nod. "No, Beth, you're fine. We were just, talking." Beth smiled in a way that suggested she understood perfectly. "I'll wait outside with them, whenever you're ready." Aldric gave Talia's hand a final squeeze before she slipped out of bed to get dressed. As she pulled on a simple gown, she shot him a playful look. "We'll continue our conversation later?" His expression was warm as he rose to dress. "Count on it." They stepped into the corridor to find Beth cradling one twin while Charlotte held the other. The sight made Talia's heart melt. The babies were alert, gazing around with wide eyes that still bore that sweetly unfocused look of infancy. Yet she had begun to notice something in her son's gazes, an awareness that felt beyond their age, a spark of curiosity whenever they sensed movement or new people. Charlotte grinned at Talia. "Both little princes are wide awake and very vocal this morning." Beth nodded. "Indeed. They seem to want to explore already, though it's a bit early for crawling. They're quite active for their age." Talia gently scooped the older twin into her arms, pressing a soft kiss to his forehead. She reveled in the tiny movements of his fists, the bright glimmer in his eyes. Aldric took the younger one, cradling him in a secure hold against his chest. The sight of him holding their son so tenderly always made Talia's chest tighten with affection. "They've had an appetite like I've never seen," Charlotte remarked, shifting the basket of supplies she carried. "I could hardly believe it when they wanted more milk after the last feeding." Beth nodded. "And they seem to have an incredible sense of awareness for newborns. Luca noticed it too when he stopped by earlier. He said it's nothing to worry about. Just evidence that these two are special, perhaps more than we first realized." Talia exchanged a look with Aldric, recalling the hints of a prophecy in the elders' guarded conversations. She tried not to let her concern show, instead smiling at Charlotte and Beth. "They seem healthy and happy. That's what matters most right now." Charlotte gave an approving nod. "Exactly, and they're definitely healthy. Loud, but healthy." Laughter rippled among them as Talia and Aldric continued down the hall with the twins, eventually pausing near a sunlit alcove where they could sit on a comfortable sofa. The day was just beginning, and Talia felt a surge of contentment as she watched Aldric softly rock their younger son. This was her family, and the pack was slowly adjusting to seeing her in this role, not just as a mother, but as the Luna. Eventually, Charlotte and Beth headed off to handle various tasks, leaving Aldric and Talia a few minutes of relative quiet. The older twin stirred in Talia's arms, letting out a series of soft coos that made Aldric grin. She returned his smile, feeling her cheeks warm. "I wish I could keep them this small forever," she whispered. "But I also look forward to seeing who they'll become." "We might see glimpses of that sooner than we think," Aldric said quietly, a note of solemn wonder in his voice. "When the pack elders notice how advanced they seem, I imagine we'll have many curious questions." Talia swallowed, remembering the quiet hints of prophecy she had overheard. Let them ask. I'm more concerned about protecting them from whatever threats might come. Aldric carefully passed the younger twin to Talia, freeing his arm so he could slip closer and place a hand over hers. We'll protect them, Talia. You have my word. She nodded, trying to focus on the warmth in his eyes, letting it soothe the pang of unease that flickered at the back of her mind. Thank you. As midday approached, Talia found herself drawn into a series of brief meetings arranged by Luca, who was helping coordinate the pack's internal affairs now that Talia was officially Luna. She met with a small group of younger wolves who oversaw food distribution. Then she listened patiently to two elders who inquired about potential improvements to the estate's training grounds. Throughout these conversations, Talia made an effort to speak calmly, remain open-minded, and offer genuine empathy. She remembered how it felt to be overlooked or dismissed, and she never wanted to make anyone feel that way. One older wolf with a stern manner asked, "Have you considered forming a Luna's Council?" Some packs do that, to offer direct assistance and gather opinions from different ranks. She hesitated, aware that she was still learning. Then she replied, I think it's a good idea, but I need to understand the pack's structure better before I make that decision. Would you be willing to advise me on how such a council might be formed? He looked surprised, and a flicker of respect lit his eyes. I would be honored, Luna. Luca, standing off to the side, nodded in approval. Once the old wolf left, Luca turned to Talia. You handled that well. Some of the older members expected you to brush them off or postpone changes, but showing interest in their ideas is winning them over. Talia exhaled in relief, offering him a grateful smile. I'm glad to have your support. I'm stumbling, but I'm trying to learn quickly. You're not stumbling, Luca said, the faintest smile crossing his usually stoic features. You're listening. That alone is a change they appreciate. Beth arrived, quietly offering Talia a pitcher of water and a platter of small pastries. Thought you might need a break, she said kindly. Talia accepted the refreshment. Thank you. She took a sip, letting the cool water soothe her throat. You're all making this much easier than I expected. Beth's eyes crinkled at the corners. You bring a gentleness the pack needed, Talia, and your natural compassion goes a long way. I've seen so many wolves who were unsure about a new Luna come away impressed by your honesty. Touched by her words, Talia bowed her head slightly. I appreciate that, Beth. At that moment, Aldric appeared in the doorway, the faint press of tension in his jaw. He exchanged a brief glance with Luca, who nodded once and slipped away. Talia felt a thread of concern as she set down the glass. Is everything all right? Mostly, Aldric said, stepping closer. We have visitors from the Silverbrook pack. Allies, but apparently they have some questions about your late awakening as a wolf. He tried to keep his voice neutral, but Talia could detect a hint of frustration. She drew in a steadying breath. I suppose we should greet them properly. Beth quietly excused herself while Aldric offered Talia his arm. I'm sorry to drag you into a meeting. They insisted on speaking to us both. She nodded. I understand. If I'm to be Luna, I need to handle such things. They made their way to a smaller council room where 3 wolves waited, each wearing the emblem of the Silverbrook pack on simple, understated attire. Talia took her seat beside Aldric, determined to maintain a calm and open expression. One of the visitors, a slender man with keen gray eyes, inclined his head. Thank you for meeting with us, Alpha Dark Moon, Luna Talia. We came with congratulations on your ceremony, but also some curiosity. Aldric's jaw tightened. Go on, he prompted. The man glanced at Talia. We heard from those who witnessed that you awakened your wolf quite recently and under intense circumstances. We also heard you displayed remarkable strength. Our pack is simply concerned about how this came to be, and whether it indicates a new era of unpredictability in alliances. Talia forced herself to remain poised. I appreciate your concern. Yes, my wolf emerged later in life, triggered partly by the extreme danger we faced. However, that doesn't change my loyalty to this pack or to maintaining peaceful alliances. Another member of the Silverbrook delegation, a woman with alert, dark eyes, eyed Talia thoughtfully. You mean no disrespect, I'm sure, but some might see a newly awakened wolf as a possible threat, especially if the Alpha in question is also newly recognized as Luna. Aldric's voice turned firm, a protective current underlining each word. Talia is not a threat. She is my mate and the mother of our heirs. Our alliance with Silverbrook remains solid. Any insinuation otherwise borders on insulting her honor. The woman shifted slightly but pressed on. It's not an insult to her honor if we simply express caution, perhaps if we had more details about her lineage, the reason for the dormant wolf, or... That's enough, Aldric said, voice calm but edged with finality. He rose to his full height, commanding the room. You came with questions and we answered as far as courtesy allows. My mate's awakening changes nothing about our treaties or the stability of this region. If you question it further, you question the authority of my pack. An uneasy silence settled. Talia felt her pulse pound, grateful for Aldric's fierce defense. She took a breath, deciding to add her own voice. I will gladly maintain open dialogue if your pack truly seeks understanding, but I will not accept accusations that undermine my loyalty. I earned the respect of my pack through deeds, not just ceremony. The slender man with gray eyes cleared his throat. We meant no offense. We shall leave these matters and convey your assurances to our Alpha. Aldric dipped his head. Then be sure to convey that Luna Talia's strength is an asset, not a concern. The meeting concluded swiftly after that. As soon as the Silverbrook visitors departed, Aldric rested a hand on Talia's shoulder. Are you all right? Her nerves still buzzed with the tension of that confrontation. Yes. Thank you for defending me. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. No one questions my mate without hearing from me. I will always protect you. Emboldened by his words and the rush of gratitude, she turned, pressing a light kiss to his lips. I'll remember that. They stepped out of the council room to find Charlotte pacing in the hallway, apparently waiting. Talia filled her in with a brief explanation of the visitors' concerns. Charlotte's eyes flashed with annoyance. It seems every distant pack is curious about your awakening. At least it's over now. Hopefully, Talia said with a small sigh. I imagine we might have more visitors with similar questions. Charlotte patted her arm. You handled them well. People will see that, Talia. Once Charlotte left, Aldric touched Talia's arm. Come with me. I have a spot in the orchard where we can breathe for a few minutes. You look like you need air. She nodded, relieved. He led her outside, passing rows of carefully tended fruit trees that formed a serene boundary near the estate's eastern edge. It was quiet here, the sun filtering through the leaves in shifting patterns of light and shade. Aldric guided her to a wooden bench where they sat side by side. She glanced at him, a weary laugh bubbling up. Well, that was intense. He exhaled, reaching for her hand. I wanted to throttle them for questioning you so openly, but you were calm and direct. I admire that. She rubbed her thumb over his knuckles. I was seething inside, but I remembered what you said about leading through composure. It helped. He turned, brushing a gentle kiss over her knuckles. You are taking to this role far better than you give yourself credit for. His gaze dropped to her lips, and without a word, she leaned in. Their next kiss, in the orchard's quiet hush, was tinged with relief. She parted from him only when they heard faint footsteps in the distance, one of the guards passing by. I wish we could stay here alone, she murmured, leaning her forehead against his. Everything feels simpler when it's just us. I know, he agreed softly. But we have responsibilities inside. And we also have something to look forward to tonight. Her brow lifted. Tonight? He smirked, standing. Trust me. After finishing a few more responsibilities that day, Talia eventually found herself back in her bedchamber as evening fell. The twins had settled down, lulled by Beth's soothing presence. Aldric came to her while she was freshening up, taking her hand. "This way," he said, guiding her through a dim corridor until they reached an inner training room lit by a handful of lanterns. He produced a small key, unlocking the door with a low click. She entered, eyes adjusting to the flickering glow. "What are we doing here this late?" "Training," he said simply, a playful note in his tone. "But also, I wanted to make sure we had privacy." She felt a ripple of anticipation. Why privacy? He moved behind her, the heat of his body a comforting presence. "Because I know how tense you've been, and I recall we never truly celebrated your improvement in shifting." Her pulse quickened. "You mean you want me to practice again now?" "Yes, if you're willing." His voice lowered. "But if you're too tired, we can do something else. I just wanted to give us a moment to focus on your growth, without an audience." She considered it, letting out a slow breath. "No, I want to try. I feel calmer now than I did this morning, and I think that might help." He nodded, turning her gently to face him. The dim lanterns threw warm shadows across his features. "Close your eyes. Remember how you did it before. Summon that quiet confidence." She did so, inhaling until her lungs felt full. She let her awareness slide inward, picturing the flicker of energy she had touched before. Slowly, but steadily, she coaxed her wolf out, letting the shift sweep over her in a fluid wave. She tensed for pain, but there was only a deep warmth, a moment of tingling as her bones reshaped. When she opened her eyes again, she was in her wolf form, gazing up at Aldric. Aldric dropped to one knee, a grin tugging at his lips. "Beautiful," he murmured, extending his hand so she could press her muzzle to his palm. She huffed softly, her tail swishing. He chuckled, running his fingers over her fur in a light, appreciative touch. "You've gotten so much more comfortable with this. I'm proud of you." She let out a small canine sound of contentment, enjoying his gentle petting. Then, when she felt ready, she shifted back, standing on 2 feet again. Aldric had brought a loose robe for her, which she quickly slipped on. Warmth filled her cheeks as she noticed the way he watched her, equal parts admiration and adoration. "That's definitely getting easier," she said, rubbing her arms to clear the last buzz of energy. He curled an arm around her waist, drawing her in. "It amazes me each time, and you looked fearless." She smiled, leaning into him. "I'm still in awe that you've guided me so patiently. I know you have more important duties, but you keep making time for this." He shook his head. "Nothing is more important than you." His hand slid to her cheek, thumb brushing softly over her skin. "Let me show you how much I mean that." Her breath caught at the promise in his words. When he kissed her, she tasted the heady mix of admiration and longing. She arched closer, running her hands up to his shoulders, relishing the warmth that surged through her veins. The gentle hush of the lantern-lit room made each quiet sound they shared feel amplified, each rustle of clothing a sweet reminder that they were alone and at ease. She parted from him only when she needed to catch her breath. His eyes were half-lidded with desire and a tender protectiveness that always melted her. "Thank you," she whispered, brushing her lips against his jaw. "For making me feel safe enough to explore who I really am." He inhaled slowly as though steadying himself. "You deserve all of that, and more." They spent a few more minutes locked in soft conversation and the occasional deep, fervent kiss, but eventually Talia felt a pleasant fatigue creeping in. Sensing her weariness, Aldric guided her out of the training room, extinguishing the lanterns behind them. On their walk back, she asked, "Where are the twins?" "With Beth for the moment," Aldric replied, "but we can collect them whenever you like." Talia brightened. "I'd like to feed them before bed, then maybe we can all spend a little time together." The next hour found them in a quiet sitting room near the nursery. Beth gently brought the twins in, their small faces alight with that innocent wonder Talia had come to cherish. She and Aldric settled side by side on a cushioned sofa, each cradling a baby. Talia smiled as she watched her son's tiny fingers curl around Aldric's much larger hand, the difference in size almost comical. "Sometimes," she murmured, "I look at them and can't believe they're ours." Aldric gazed down at the baby in his arms. "I feel the same. Every day." Charlotte stepped in briefly, dropping off fresh linens, and she paused to grin at the little family scene. "They're content now. I think they like having both parents close." Beth hovered near the doorway, eyes full of fondness. "A complete picture," she said softly. "I'll leave you all to some privacy." When the two women left, Talia let out a small, happy sigh. She glanced at Aldric, noticing how relaxed his posture seemed with the baby dozing against his chest. "This is exactly what I hoped for," she said. "A quiet evening. Just us and our children. It might be my favorite moment of the day." He reached across, brushing his fingers against her arm. "Mine too." They sat like that for a time, exchanging whispers about the baby's small developments, how one had started to grip things firmly, how the other had begun babbling in a pattern that almost sounded like baby words. Talia laughed gently at the idea that they might start talking sooner than normal. Aldric's expression turned serious. "They're growing quickly, and there's so much we still don't know about their destinies." He looked at Talia, a hint of concern showing. "I worry about the pack's expectations." She carefully adjusted the baby in her arms, tucking a stray blanket corner. "We can't control the prophecy or the rumors. All we can do is love them, guide them, and protect them. If they really are meant for something extraordinary, we'll walk that path with them." His gaze grew warm. "That's all I needed to hear." Eventually, they placed the now sleeping twins in a small bassinet near the sofa, arms brushing in the process. Talia could sense the hush of the entire house around them, as though everything had lulled into contentment. She turned, settling against Aldric's shoulder. He draped an arm around her. "You've done so much for me," she whispered, eyes drifting over the dozing infants. "You brought me into this pack, defended me, let me find my place among your people. I hope you know how grateful I am." He rested his cheek against her hair. "I needed you as much as you needed me. Before you, my life was shadowed by duty alone. Now there's hope, genuine hope, that this pack can have a future built on something stronger than fear or force." She lifted her head, meeting his gaze. "You've always been strong. But you're different with me than with anyone else. I see a softness that you usually hide." He huffed a quiet laugh. "A softness only you can bring out, it seems." She pressed her lips to his jaw, trailing feather-light kisses until she reached his ear. "I won't complain. I like knowing I can make you forget all the heavy burdens you carry, at least for a little while." His breath hitched and he turned to capture her mouth in a lingering, tender kiss. It carried the slow burn of passion, balanced by the gentle hush of the sleeping twins beside them. She parted from him reluctantly, heart thumping with a mixture of love and yearning. He tucked a stray lock of her hair behind her ear, a subdued contentment gleaming in his eyes. They sat quietly for several minutes, letting the warmth of each other's presence speak more than words could. She felt Aldric's breathing level out, as if he was simply relishing the moment of peace. "I wish every night could end like this," she said softly, her fingers lacing with his. "We'll strive for it," he replied. "Even with the burdens of leadership and the unknown threats, we can carve out these moments of sanctuary. We owe it to ourselves, and to them." She let out a slow breath, thinking of the days ahead. There would be more visits from curious packs, more expectations from those who believed the twins carried a special destiny. Yet the steady, comforting weight of Aldric's arm around her gave her hope. She could handle those challenges. She wasn't facing them alone. He turned his head to drop a delicate kiss on her temple. "Talia," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "I know I've said it before, but I want to say it again. I love you. Nothing I do, no alliance or treaty or show of strength, matters as much as what we've built here. That's my true foundation. She felt tears prick her eyes at the sincerity in his words. I love you too. Every step I take feels steadier, knowing you're with me. They lapsed into silence once more, simply breathing in the closeness of each other and the quiet presence of their sleeping children. After a time, she leaned back, gazing at his face. What are your hopes for them? She asked, nodding toward the twins. Beyond the prophecy, beyond the pack's expectations. Aldric pondered for a moment. I want them to have a childhood without fear, to know unconditional love, to learn that strength can come from compassion as much as from power. I want them to see that leading is not about dominance alone, but about serving those who look up to you. She felt her throat tighten with emotion. That's exactly what I want too. I spent so much of my life feeling alone, feeling like I didn't belong. I don't want them to ever doubt they belong here, loved by us. He slid his hand beneath her chin, guiding her eyes to his. They won't. Not with the mother they have. She tilted her head, pressing her cheek into his palm. And the father they have. He smiled slowly, and she could sense the quiet pride he felt. You make me a better alpha than I ever thought I could be. They heard a faint whimper from the bassinet, and Talia leaned over to check on the older twin. He fussed for a moment, kicking little feet. Aldric reached over, placing a soothing palm on the baby's stomach. Shh, he whispered, his voice gentler than Talia had ever heard it. The baby quieted, nestling deeper into the blankets. A soft wave of affection washed over Talia. You're so good with them. He shrugged, a faint blush coloring the tips of his ears. They make it easy, and I learn from you every day. You're a natural mother. She took Aldric's hand, interlacing their fingers. Then we balance each other well. They remained that way until the baby's breathing resumed a steady rhythm of sleep. Talia leaned against Aldric again, feeling the flicker of candlelight cast dancing shadows across the walls. The moment felt sacred, a perfect blend of love, unity, and hope for whatever might come next. She let out a soft breath, remembering the swirl of events that had brought her here. The heartbreak she endured before meeting him, the shocking discovery of her pregnancy, the fateful revelation that Aldric's seed was involved. It had all felt like a whirlwind she could barely keep up with. Yet in this quiet evening, everything seemed to have found an anchor in the steady devotion they shared. Tomorrow, she said softly, we return to our duties. More visitors, more pack matters, more everything. But for tonight, he echoed her tone. For tonight, we hold on to each other. She closed her eyes, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm ready for whatever tomorrow brings, as long as you're with me. He kissed the top of her hair, murmuring something that she interpreted as a promise to stand by her side. She let the comfort of it wash over her, grateful that the swirl of responsibilities, politics, and prophecy had paused just enough for this moment of closeness. Eventually, the candles burned lower and they both grew tired, lulled by the rhythmic hush of the twins' soft breathing. Aldric helped Talia to her feet, and they carefully moved the sleeping babies back into the nursery. The hush of the estate deepened, night spreading its peaceful veil over the corridors. Once in their bedroom, Aldric shut the door gently, turning to Talia with a gaze that spoke volumes of longing and warmth. She reached for him, pressing a final good-night kiss to his lips. They parted only when both were breathless, hearts beating in tandem. She felt the faint trace of a promise in his touch, that tomorrow they would face every obstacle together. She slid into bed, settling against the pillows, while Aldric joined her, drawing her into the circle of his arms once more. Her eyes fluttered shut, and the last sound she heard before drifting into a contented sleep was the gentle lullaby of his steady breathing, mingling perfectly with her own. It was enough. More than enough. And when the first light of dawn would break again, She knew they would begin another day of forging their path, of leading a pack that was slowly coming to love its new Luna, and of guiding two extraordinary children whose destiny they would protect with every breath. But for now, they slept, entwined in love and hope, neither alone nor afraid of what lay ahead.